Upshot interview series. This is episode number 27. He is Josh Mansfield. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, and we are joined today by Paige Pierce. We've had Paige on the show many times, but I think, Josh, this is her first stop on the Upshot interview series proper. I'm going back in the archives right now to check. We have not had Paige on, so this is great. We were going to do like 20 minutes and ended up being almost an hour, and I couldn't be more excited about that because we get to talk about so many interesting things every time Paige is on. So honest with her thoughts on the state of the sport. And of course, we talk with her about her newly released film, Fierce, the documentary about her chase for sixth world title in 2021 that dropped today. If you want to check the movie out, there's a link in the description. And I certainly recommend that anybody who listens to the podcast check out the movie. It's a fascinating snapshot into Paige's life in the 2021 season and kind of where disc golf is at right now, and beautiful in 4K. It's awesome.
I think it was such an appropriate time to have her on the interview series as well, because we got to ask some really good questions about the documentary, about her as, you know, an individual as well as an athlete, and framed in the context of the documentary. I think it really elevates a lot of Paige's both opinions on the sport, but also just her role, her competitive spirit, and the way in which she engages with the sport. And so make sure to check out the documentary soon and listen to it or watch it in combination with when you listen to this interview, because I really think the two augment each other well. And it really is an exciting opportunity, I think, to talk to Paige as Paige and about Paige, and it's in the questions that other settings may not always be 100% appropriate.
Well, without further ado, let's get to our conversation with Paige Pierce. She's going for her sixth world title in a couple weeks in Emporia, and a little less intensity around that push this year. There's not a film crew following her as she tries to get the win, but lots to hear from Paige Pierce. She even weighs in on some of the spicy drama going on right now in disc golf. So fun stuff with Paige. We'll be right back. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. And you know what? They make more than just disc golf bags. Check out their new fly pack. You can find it on the website, pounddiscgolf.com. It is the maximum carry-on size travel pack that you've been looking for. Backpack straps, or you can take those off and convert it into a duffel. It's got room for a laptop, a tablet, your clothes, your stuff, and you know what? Some disc golf discs, because obviously you're going to bring some on vacation. $299.99, and it's just a beautiful bag. You got to check it out. It's available in multiple colorways. Go to pounddiscgolf.com to check out the fly pack so that you can travel in style. Joining us now on the Upshot interview series is Paige Pierce, five-time world champ, two-time 22 major champion. Paige, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. It's good to be back. Yeah, I'm doing great. Just getting ready for another event like always. So not too much time to think about how I feel, but today's a big day for me. So the documentary is releasing today. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, let's start there. You know, this has been a project in the works for quite some time. I'm sure you've watched it a million times. Like, what does it feel? How does it feel to finally be putting it out to the world broadly?
Yeah, you know, it's crazy because, like you said, we've been working on this for so long, and more specifically, Wilson, the producer, director, everything, has been working on it and seen every scene like countless times. But it's really exciting for me to finally have other people see it. And, you know, like when I'm saying like, guys, this is like a huge project, this is something huge for me, like, in how much time it's taken up, how much effort I put into this. Like, it's cool to finally like unravel this present, you know, and, you know, just take another step in getting disc golf seen by more people.
I'm curious, what was the final production budget of Fierce?
Very high.
Very high.
out of pocket for me, it was 6 figures. And then we had a GoFundMe that was, I think we ended up raising 82,000 as well. So I think we're talking somewhere over 200,000, probably more, like, yeah, almost 300,000.
So I watched a movie last night and this morning, so it's fresh in my mind, and I don't want to steal the thunder from your Q&A that's coming out that's going to be happening live later today. So I won't ask too many questions about the film itself. I am curious to know a little bit more about what you hope that this film will be. You know, it's getting released on Disc Golf Network. You know, people are buying tickets to watch, and it seems that there's a bigger plan beyond that. What are you hoping will be the final distribution for this movie, and what impact do you hope it's going to have?
Yeah, so that is actually, so when I had this crazy idea to do a documentary, right? And it's really amazing to branch off for just 1 second. It's really amazing that like I had this idea, and then just like 2 or 3 weeks later, it just literally fell into place. I met Wilson. He's like, hey, you want to film it in the bag? I'm like, no, but it says right here on your thing that you're a documentarian. Let's do a documentary. And, you know, from there, like once a plan kind of starts falling into place, you just get bigger and bigger expectations and hopes and dreams. And once I realized, like, met Wilson's whole crew, see their equipment, I realized like this is, and received the budget. I realized like just how big this actually could be. And so I start thinking huge. And, you know, I did an interview with Sports Illustrated recently. We've been on Sports Center. We have connections with like CBS Sports, Carly Lloyd, you know, a lot of celebrities. And so I'm like, man, if we can get this out to them, they can promote it to their audiences. When we can get this big, like we can show the Netflixes and the Hulus and the Amazon Primes, like that disc golf is content that people do want to watch. We already know that by seeing all the YouTube numbers. And like, if we can, I mean, I'm curious, do you guys like open Netflix every day and like see what's new on there? Like, you guys are media buffs, right?
I can't say that I'm the biggest TV guy, but I pop in and see what's going on in the apps.
Yeah.
So I know that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go for it. Seriously.
I was gonna say the big thing I check for. I may not pull up the app, but there are you have the articles. And I just actually read one 2 days ago, so I can tell you with like full honesty, I do this. There's the articles that are like, here's what's coming to Netflix, and it's like what like the must watch, the new and interesting, and the busts. And then they have the same thing for Hulu and, you know, Amazon, and they give those lists. And I always read those so that I know if it's worth, you know, going to Netflix, and if I need my parents' Netflix password again.
I might have you send me that link. But basically my point is like, all the time, like whenever I have a down moment or like I'm trying to fall asleep or something, I pull up Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime, whatever it is, and I see like what's new on there. And I know that like I'm not the only one. Like the majority of human beings are doing that. We're scratching for entertainment. And I mean, probably for every single person that's watching this podcast, you are addicted to disc golf and you want to share it with everyone. You're probably wearing a disc golf t-shirt right now. And like, this was my hope, is like, this is how we can share it. And I was so happy to partner with Wilson, who's like a trained filmmaker and knows like how to keep your interest for an hour and 47 minutes and like let you ride this ride with us. And, you know, like he's talking about, okay, we need the drama, we need the antagonist, we need this. And like, and I just trust his vision. And after seeing the film, I'm like, wow, you know, I feel fully engaged, and that is what we want to bring to the audience that watches it. We want that beginning segment of like explaining how a disc flies and all the basics in a short, concise, and understandable way. And then to get them hooked into what life on the road's like for us, like how actually professional the tournaments really are. And then to kind of just like leave them wanting more at the end. Like, so that is what our goal was, to just make a film that people, you know, they want more. They want to see more about disc golf.
Well, it's certainly fascinating, and there's so many dramatic moments, obviously much of that driven by your story. How is it for you to go back and watch this? Because there's a lot of emotional stuff in here, obviously, when, you know, losing at Worlds, but other things as well, your relationship with your father, some things explored more deeply than others, but you know, we see you in some pretty vulnerable moments. Is it hard for you to look back on those things, or do you find it that you're kind of like able to be removed from it now?
The hardest part for me to watch is honestly, like, there's like a beginning segment, it's maybe like 6 or 7 minutes of basically my peers just saying how great I am. And that for me is like, I do not want to watch that at all. But it's part of the story, and I understand it. And yeah, that's just, it's like when someone says like, oh, I like your shirt, it's like, oh, thanks. And then you change the subject or whatever, like you walk away. And like, sometimes it's hard to take compliments. So like, while I feel like super appreciative and like kind of like, oh, thank you, Des, like that's an honor that you would say that, but it's just like, okay, this is a little uncomfortable for me. You know, the hard moments, the defeats, the you know, crying on my couch and stuff, those are also like, I wouldn't say hard to watch, but it just brings back all the emotions again. And like, I'm just like, whoa, you know, but then it's also like, wow, like how far you've come just since that, which was only a year ago. And it's cool to have this like year of my life as like almost like a video diary.
I want to jump in before Josh has another question, because one of the things that struck me, obviously I pay a lot of attention to what's going on in disc golf. So I feel like very much in everything that's going on. And so watching the film, it's like this kind of strange, because it's like a time capsule of 2021. And so much has changed even since like the middle of last year. You know, when we come on and we're talking about the national tour, it's like, whoa, like that is already not a thing anymore. And obviously it addresses it at the end of the film, but it's kind of crazy to see like some of the things in that movie directly led to changes that are now in place here in August 2022 compared to 1 year ago. And, you know, the criticism of the PDGA that's in the movie, like, it doesn't really address the fact that some of those criticisms helped drive the changes. But it's kind of an unusual thing to see how fast the sport is changing, that even something from 1 year ago feels like, wow, that's already in the past.
Right. Totally. And that was like, you know, I touched on like, you know, oh, I had this idea, let's make a documentary. I didn't realize how long the process took, right? Like, okay, we got all the film done, and I've edited YouTube videos. I know that can take weeks. So like I underestimated, but even with that knowledge, I underestimated, okay, we're making a 2-hour film. Like, wow, the editing time's going to be long. Like, then just distribution, like all these contracts, lawyers, you know, signature here. And it's like, I underestimated that. And there was like some bits of like angst in me of like, hey, let's get this thing out, because like it's already 2022 now. Like this story is going to lose steam. And I, again, so thankful to have Wilson as my partner in this, because he, coming from the film world, he's like, Paige, remember what your mission is. Your mission is to get this to new people, not to the disc golf world. Yeah, it might be old news to the disc golf world, but this story is going to live on forever in the outsiders' minds. Like, they don't care about the date that it took place. I mean, 2 nights ago, I just watched a film about Woodstock 99s, and like that still got my interest, even though that was decades ago. So that was a cool realization of like, yes, it's August of 2022 this year, and like we're just now getting it out. But I mean, it takes time, especially when you see how good this film is. I mean, like every day was worth it. And I think we've built a great team around it. And I think it's well worth the wait. So I feel super happy with it.
I know that this has been a significant time investment, and then I know that as well as you have other content that you produce, which is becoming the norm for disc golfers. What do you see as kind of the next step after, this film is seen through, let's say it does get to Netflix, you achieve the goals that you want, the distribution is done, and this film just kind of runs its course. What do you see as the next step then in your career in media, content development, etc., just aside from the actual competitive side of the game?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it kind of just got my mind thinking of so many different things, which is really cool. But for me, obviously this is my opinion, but I think the kind of content I want to watch is like, I'm sick of pulling up YouTube and it's like, hey, mic'd up practice round. Hey, this is how to throw farther. I want to see you remember when Ricky teased like that he was going to have a cooking show? And like, I want to see Brian Earhart playing the banjo. I want to see Ricky cooking. Like, I want us to show, like, me and my peers inside disc golf. I want us to be more open with who we are when we're not playing, because it's like, we already know who we are when we're playing, but we're so much more than that. And it's like, we're kind of like robots of like, watch me throw this disc, I'll throw it far, and it's like, okay, what else do you do? What else do you think about? Like, and so I think that the documentary is cool because it touches on like the things that I think about that never make it into round coverage or anything like that. Like, my relationships, my, yeah, totally. My dad kind of being like, homophobic. Yeah. Homophobic. Or in the past he was, and like stuff like that. And so, I think players realizing that they're more than just who they are on the disc golf course and creating content that matches that. I think that's what I want to see coming next, and what I think could make a big impact and get us into different people's eyes,
What's your current relationship like with your father? We don't really see the two of you interacting in the movie. It's kind of separate interviews most of the time, talking about the relationship that you have.
Yeah, I guess you're right. We don't really interact in the movie too much. I mean, back in the day, he was always my caddy, and he was in my ear telling me what disc to throw on every hole. And that caused a huge rift in our relationship, just because I enjoyed about disc golf the creativity and like the decision making, and I didn't want to have him telling me what to do. So there was a time where I was just like, Dad, you can't be right there. And so now like he's watching, but he's farther back. And I think that that's kind of how our relationship is that he's always, to this day, like he's always like, he knows what I'm doing every day. He knows where I am. And he's like almost like keeping tabs on me, and not in a weird way, but like, he's like, he wants to know what my life is like, but he doesn't want to bug me. And, yeah, we talk often. Usually it's like a quick phone call, like, hey, I just thought of you, like one way or the other, like when I saw this, or, hey, check this out, whatever. So we talk a lot. I think that we try to avoid, the big debates over the phone. And we want to like actually look in each other's eyes and like, hey, if this is something I've been thinking about while you've been on tour, or, hey, I've been thinking about this while I've been on tour, and we have a heart to heart in person. And I think that it's like, sometimes it gets heated just because we both have like very reactionary personalities and very strong opinions, and we're both stubborn. But we appreciate like growth and learning. And so it's been a huge shift in our relationship. And I think that's such a weird thing. Like when you become a parent, to see your child start getting like opinions of their own, and maybe they're different than yours. And like, and like for me, like every time I see my dad, he like physically looks older, and I'm like, wow, like just getting older and realizing like that your relationship inevitably changes with everyone, and especially your parents. So it's cool, and there are hard times, but like we come out of them stronger every time. And this film was a huge part in that, because I mean, like you see at the beginning of the film in one of Alyssa's interviews, like she says, like, my dad didn't even know about our relationship at that point. And, through the film and through like this whole year, it was kind of this transition of just like him learning more of who I am and him accepting that and loving me even more so.
I would like to shift gears a little bit to the competitive side, but I want to give Charlie the opportunity to ask any other questions about.
I have one more, Josh.
Okay, all right. I didn't want to back. So.
Again, I'm not going to ask too many questions about the film specifically. One thing that's not mentioned in the film or really addressed is Hawaii, which was interesting to me because one of the, some of the major themes of the movie are relationships, home is discussed at multiple points. And then, you had that huge winning streak coming off of the trip, and like we sort of see that in the film where you're not playing as well and then you're playing better, but we don't really see the interstitial there. Was that a conscious decision? Is that a creative choice that you or the director made? Or was that just like the camera crew didn't come to Hawaii?
Actually they did, but just Wilson and his wife. Wilson's actually half Hawaiian. So he kind of took it as like, hey, I don't want to interrupt your vacation. Megan and I are going to go to Hawaii. If you feel like you want to spend a day with the cameras on, I would love to. I'm going to bring my camera equipment, but I'm not going to impose. And so actually the only stuff that you'll see from Hawaii is Alyssa's interview.
Got it. And
that was a huge decision, because he realized that for his benefit of like really understanding who I am, he wanted to get Alyssa's interview before anybody else's. So we hadn't done any other interviews yet. And he wanted to get Alyssa, as the person who knows me best in the world, to kind of set him up for what he would ask people, what kind of storylines there would be and stuff like that. So her interview is in Hawaii, but we didn't get any other footage in Hawaii. And there wasn't necessarily a reason for that, but I mean, we have, I think Wilson said we have 80 or 800. I can't remember. Sorry. But anyway, we have a massive amount of hours just of interview footage. On top of that, all the disc golf footage and, the B-roll, stuff like that. So just narrowing it down, I mean, my first version of seeing the film was like 2 hours and 50 minutes or something like that. So we had to keep cutting it down. I mean, obviously that wasn't going to stick, but it was kind of like, hey, what parts are important? What parts aren't? So yeah, it was already too much coverage or too much footage to go through. So I don't know. I think that's a good question for Wilson, because for me, totally Hawaii was an important thing, but and this isn't, while I am the main character and I'm kind of, Wilson calls it the driver that's driving you through disc golf. I didn't want it to be more like about me. I wanted it to be like, I'm the one showing you what disc golf's like as a competitor, as a traveler, as an advocate, as someone that's fighting the PDJ. But I didn't want it to be too much about like myself, but he thought it was important to show like relationships and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's a good question for Wilson, maybe if you want to come to the Q&A.
I will try to be there. 9:00, right?
Yep, 9 p.m.
Which time zone?
Eastern.
Okay.
Eastern, yeah.
So my question is kind of a transition question from something that you mentioned at the beginning when we were talking about the film to this season and competition. You mentioned about, and I have not seen the documentary yet. I'm watching it today. But you mentioned how you needed to find an antagonist for the film. And it made me wonder, for this season, let's say going into Worlds, every player were to show up 100% healthy and playing their best game, who do you consider to be your biggest threat at Worlds this year?
Oh, that's a good one. I think that every time it's Katrina, just experience alone. And I mean, Valerie Manduhano is proving to have a good season, but I think she very well could podium top 5 for sure. But it's a different gear to win a world championship when you go to bed and like you can't sleep and that's all you're thinking about is, wow, this could change my life. This could change my life. It's, Katrina sleeps well. She's been there. She's been there time and time again. And like, she's not stressing about that. She's thinking of other things. And, that's something where the younger players that haven't quite had that breakthrough aren't necessarily prepared to deal with mentally. So I think just mentally, I would have to say Katrina, but I think, I would throw in there Valerie and, probably someone like Ella or, Natalie Ryan, who and Missy Gann, and like it's more rare on the FPO side to have someone who thinks they're the best. Like everyone on the NBA court, when they step on, they think I'm the best player on this court. But in the FPO division, that's fewer and far between. And those players that I just named, I think they do have that feeling inside of them, like I am the best player on this course today. So I think that's a huge element in what it takes to win as well.
So I added the caveat about healthy because there's a player that you didn't mention in your list that I'm kind of curious about, and really was kind of the other
Kristen,
option.
Yeah. I don't know if she's playing.
Like, that's an omission.
we talked to her. Charlie, you talked to her this week?
She is planning to play Ledgestone, DMC, and Worlds.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's where my question was kind of coming from.
Okay. I mean, yes, absolutely, Kristen. I mean, like, she definitely thinks she's the best, and she has proven that can win. But again, she hasn't won a world title. So I think that is definitely a storyline to pay attention to, especially if you're a disc golf fan, like that is going to be very exciting.
Do you think Katrina's still the number one threat?
My number one answer, yeah.
Still Katrina. Okay.
My number one answer, Katrina. Right. But yeah, I would absolutely add Kristen into there.
We keep cutting you off. You were going to say something about you saw Kristen yesterday.
Yeah, I saw her yesterday. And she had her arm taped up. I was surprised to actually see her here, but I hadn't looked at the registration or anything. And then after that, I looked to see if she was playing, and she's on my card first round, so that'll be fun to play with her again. And I think it was Alexis and Sarah Holcomb as well. So yeah, it seems that she's playing, and if she's playing here, then I would assume she's feeling at least good enough to try. And I could see it going one of two ways. She's either going to come out like on the podium, or she might drop out of the tournament and be like, hey, I'm not ready yet. I'm going to take a break and wait till worlds basically.
I agree with your assessment. How is this year's chase for number 6 different than last year?
I think that it's more about feeling it instead of like talking about it, like this interview, I feel like it's kind of been the first time I'm like that question right there was the first time I've been asked about worlds. So that feels refreshing. It was so much like build up to it. And how do you feel? What do you think? What do you, and it just created this whole narrative in me that like, it was like, wow, we're already talking about this. But I mean, I recognize that I started that, but, yeah, I think that it's more natural this year. Like it's only a couple weeks away now. It's two tournaments until Worlds. And I feel like I'm getting ready for Northwoods and Sunset. I'm not really thinking about Emporia yet. So I think that like just being more present in the moment and like feeling it through, that's the biggest difference for me.
What was it like getting to play at the European Open again?
Epic. So cool. And like, I mean, that course is just so amazing. Like, you don't step up to one single hole and you're like, oh, this is easy. Like, maybe hole 8, but like, even that one, like, you have to have good speed control or you're not going to park it and you're going to leave yourself with a weird, like, 30-footer up this mound. So, like, not like 99% of the shots, like, you're like, okay, 80% power, a little bit of hyzer here, you know, and you're like full on, like, locked in, or you need to be to execute. So that is just a special feeling. Like, nothing feels routine. You're not just like throwing a Frisbee, you know? And so that just right there, that alone is like super special. And then just like the added, professionalism of like, they had, like a scoring trailer, and like we went in there and there was like this upper like platform that nobody else could get into it, and we had this like walkway up to the tee pad with like our own bathrooms and changing areas and showers and stuff. So like that was super cool and just felt like more like backstage at a, you know, concert, you know, like it felt like we were like taken care of, I would say. And then I mean, the fans are just like insane numbers. Like, actually, if I'm being perfectly honest, like the first day of the competition, it was pretty small for the women's division, like spectating wise. But come Sunday, it was insane, like truly unbelievable. Like, there was so many people that you couldn't even make out how many like rows there were. You know what I mean? Like, it was just head, and it was just insane. There was a moment I caddied for Kevin Jones after my round, and the men's gallery, what I would say was a little bigger and just more all in one place, because when the women are teeing, like, there's people everywhere, but when the women are done and only the lead card of men is there, like, everyone's gathered in the same place. And there was a moment where I was like, Kevin, like, just do a spin right now and just like take this moment in, because like, no matter what place you get right now, like, this is a moment right here. And like, we both just got goosebumps and chills, and it was just like the biggest crowd of humans that I've ever seen, like, collectively watching disc golf. It was super cool.
It's incredible to watch on video too. I mean, it really comes through, I think.
Is it?
Oh,
cool.
Yeah. Oh,
I hope that came across. Cool.
I'd love to hear from you on the 3 majors that you played so far this year. You obviously won 2 of them. We have Champions Cup at WR Jackson. Then we were in Madison, Wisconsin for the U.S. Women's Championship, and then at European. Now, U.S. Women's, big feature in your film is talking about that tournament as kind of like a starting point of talking about PDGA and some criticism there. How do you feel like that tournament went this year? Are you seeing improvement on that front?
No, unfortunately not. There was a huge gallery. It was cool to see so many people out watching. I'm choosing not to make it my battle again this year because it took a lot out of me energy wise and mentally. I've written up a long thing, and as I will for every single tournament this year. And I want, good and bad, I want to just be like, hey, these are the things that I'm thinking about as a player and as the biggest, like, growth minded player. I think that we need to either keep doing because we did it good, or we need to change this for sure. And the things I saw at US Women's were kind of more of the same. Honestly, it was unfortunate. The courses that we played were beautiful, absolutely stunning properties that we played on. But 15 of our 36 holes were under 300 feet. So similar complaint to every other US Women's to date. Like, you're having the top players in the world throwing standstill putter shots off the tee. And I don't know about you, but as a fan of the game, I want to see people ripping sidearms, throwing rollers. I want to see good shots. And I don't mean like we want to throw it as hard as we can on every hole, but I want to see like a variety in shot shapes, and I want the players to be tested to their full capabilities. As I said last year on this podcast and in the doc and stuff. So that was a huge bummer. And then also just the course not being closed again. I mean, literally 2 days before the event and the day before the event, both of those 2 days, there were leagues going on at the course. Like, not only was the course not closed, they're like, hey, come on out and play a league. And then it's like, yeah, you know, if a local's there and they're a huge fan, they're like, oh yeah, like, to throw it back to Auburn Worlds in California. And I did complain that the course wasn't closed, but at least there, like, if you went to a hole and you saw a couple locals, they would be like, hey, good luck this week, go ahead and play through. But when there's a league going on, there's people on every single hole, and they feel like, hey, I paid money to be here and play, like, it's just as much as my right as yours, like, and you can't skip through 8 groups. So that was the most frustrating part for me, that not only was it an oversight, but like there was purposeful, organized leagues happening on our course, and that would never fly at the USDGC, never. So that was my most frustrating part.
I mean, it gets me to a question.
And
go ahead.
One more thing, just since you asked, you know, so for that event, we did not receive the caddy book with like course rules, OBs. We didn't receive that until the day before the event started. Whereas the 3 events afterwards, I already had the European Open caddy book in my email.
Well, like, I don't know that you
I already
the
had the OT
book,
like,
because my like 10-year-old brother made the caddy book in MS Paint.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy.
Okay, so
it was just frustrating.
I understand. I understand your perspective. I mean, I think from a competition standpoint, I found this year's tournament very entertaining. We had a lot of, you know, new names up at the top and a close battle down the stretch. Mm-hmm. And I certainly understand that the courses were not testing some skills particularly. And I think it's a fair complaint to say that it should. These U.S. women's courses have been short and technical, and, you know, emphasis on the short for a long time. The question I have for you is, do you feel like that the FPO field basically at this point has just outgrown this tournament? Because like the concept of having leagues during U.S., like before this tournament starts for U.S. women's, makes sense in a world in which you're thinking about this tournament as like a community building opportunity for women from all over the country to come and play this big, gigantic AM/pro event. But then we also like, mm-hmm. It is an FPO major that is the counterpart to the USDGC, and they really couldn't be more different in the way that they are treated. So is it just that like FPO needs to be separated from the rest of what this U.S. women's tournament is at this point?
I think that's a really good thought train. Like we have outgrown it. And what you said about like it being a good community building thing, and like kind of like how Women's Global is, but you know, it's like, it's virtual, it's all online. But at the US Women's, like you're seeing women and girls, like, you know, 6-year-olds and like 80-year-olds, like women of all types out there showing, you know, the same love of the sport. And that is the most beautiful part of the event. But yes, the question is, should it have a M beside it, you know? And I think more so the women's national championship should, which the one Missy won at Rock Hill. I just think that it feels more prestigious. Everything about it, you know, I had to say no to autograph, and some of them I said yes to, like, as I'm doing my warm-up routine with Seth Muncie, like there's fans, like there's no warm-up area. Like it just feels like a free-for-all of like, hey, I love you, you love me, we all love Frisbees. You know, it doesn't feel like a major. So, I mean, maybe that's the future of U.S. women's is it becomes like this like A tier thing, but to continue to get the top pros to it, we purposely make it on a week that there's no other event, so that we still choose that event, we still go to it, we still meet all of our up and comers and our elders that have passed the torch on, and we still keep that spirit of U.S. women's. But yeah, I mean, like you said though, like I want to talk about what you said. Like it was down to the wire. Like when I finished my round, I already knew I was out of it. Hannah and I were on 6 card, and we were just trying to eagle every hole, and it was fun. It was really fun. But we knew we were out of it, and we were watching scores like, oh my God, any of them could win. As soon as our final putt tapped out, we like ran back up the hill, like trying to watch, because it was entertaining. It is cool to see new players up there. But so I don't know, it would be cool to kind of keep that element and to keep that competitive thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's never felt like a major in any year, not singling out Madison or California or any other one. And just honestly, when I think back to all of them, the one in Michigan, the one in Ohio, like all of them, really.
So I guess you mentioned this, and I was going to ask you about the Throw Pink Women's Championship a little bit and kind of the prestige. And Charlie and I have long talked about, we would love that if the U.S. Women's Championship was for FPO was instead designated, the Throw Pink Women's Championship was designated as that major instead, run, in either in back-to-back weekends or concurrently with the MPO USDGC. Given where it stands right now, though, do you think that the Throw Pink Women's Championship or the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship holds more prestige?
Throw Pink, because it is a stroke play event. The way the Pro Tour Championship is currently, it's one round, who's going to shoot the hot round and then move on, and then who's going to shoot the hot round again. The money is obviously on a lot of people's mind that the Pro Tour Championship is the biggest payout, but I wouldn't even necessarily say that that's the event that as a player that's going to get the most money in your pocket. Like the real money doesn't come from event winnings. And yeah, you saw it with Missy winning it. Like she had the highest career, set the record for the most cash in a single season in tournaments, but that was still only like, what was it? Like, I can't even remember, like 86,000 or something. Yeah. And that's with one event being $30,000. So as players, we're making a lot more money on disc sales, and that comes from winning a major title and then getting your name on a disc and selling that, or having a hero shot with a certain disc. Macbeth, I literally was talking to Paul Macbeth yesterday, and he was telling me about hole 10. He threw his Luna at one tournament, and the next day they sold like, an absurd amount of Lunas. He's like, your career can be made with one shot you throw. Like, it doesn't matter about this tournament, that tournament, whatever. So, I think that my answer is pretty strongly on the Throw Pink Championship on that one.
What's your overall take on the 2022 season? We have DGPT kind of running the show now. Things have been going pretty smoothly, it feels like. Lots of good tournaments, lots of exciting moments, and a very competitive FPO field with more people winning than ever before to this point in the season. So are you feeling that? Does it feel like it's harder to win?
I think so. I think that comes with more, I'll just speak to the FPO, like more FPO players are on the road. And so, when you're home, you're not like grinding every day. Yeah, you're probably playing practice rounds, you're probably putting, but you're not like, okay, I got to learn this disc in my bag. I got to learn this hole right here. And when players stay on the road, every single day. They don't have, their routine is disc golf. It's like, you know, when you get out of a routine, you're less, yeah, your routine is disc golf every day. You wake up, your chances are, I mean, 80% of my peers live in a van or a trailer and they sleep at the disc golf course. So they wake up, they open their door, there's a basket right there. Like they're going straight to work. And especially when all of your friends are throwing, like you might have already played a practice round, but your friend James is like, hey, you want to go play? And they're, oh, wasn't planning on playing 2 rounds today, but here I am. So like, it's just like, it's more present every single day. So players are getting better and better and better, and more reps, the better you get. Right. So I think a lot of the younger players with that like fire and that, you know, that desire to like make a name for themselves is a lot stronger and a lot more of them. So it's harder to win for sure. But I kind of wanted to take that question a different way. You said, how's the tour going? And you ended it with like competition, but I kind of wanted to talk about like the overall tour and the reason for the Disc Golf Pro Tour and Jeff Spring and Todd Rainerwater taking over and to grow it a different way than Steve Dodge was doing and stuff. Their entire like mission statement kind of is like to get the sport to new eyes. And in 2022, they did this thing where they're bringing music and we're having like performances with big bands. Corey Wong is going to be at Des Moines Challenge. And I think that's the biggest thing is like how the sport's growing is like we are trying to incorporate other ways of life or similar ways of life to come check out disc golf. Like, hey, you like live music? You like being outside? You like just like energy and collective energy? Like, check out disc golf. Like, man, were you at that Woodstock, you know, whatever? It's like, hey, were you at Ogden when James threw that shot? Like, disc golf has such similar vibes. So like to introduce new people into disc golf is, I think, what the Pro Tour is doing well. However, I think something that they're slacking on still, even though they're growing so good and making all these good changes, is just like they're completely understaffed. Like, we need way more people promoting disc golf. Like, I want to see like Emporia does it, where it's like, hey, welcome to Emporia, home of disc golf. Like, I want to see at every event, like, take out a billboard for a month, like the whole month of August, the town of Peoria should say, Ledgestone Open, here's the dates, disc golf, boom. I think there's money in the budget for that. Maybe, probably, I would assume so. I want to see more promotion. I want to see it on TV, on commercials. I want to see like, I just want to see more promotion. And I'm sure that they're thinking that as well, but they're just like understaffed and don't have enough people to do all the things they need to do. But I think that that's kind of where I hope 2023 goes to, is just more promotion of growth of the sport and less about, hey, buy this new passion, you know, check out this passion. It's like, hey, like, come watch these people throw 550 feet. Like, you can't even wrap your head around it, you know?
Very interesting. So I said we were going to do like 20, 30 minutes and it's been 45. So I'm going to hit you. No,
I know.
It's amazing, as always.
Here it goes.
I'll hit you with some quick takes. I want quick takes on hot topics. So number one, Nikko Locastro got a 9-month suspension from the PDGA. What's your thoughts on that?
Can that be quick? Oh my God. I just had a 30-minute conversation with Macbeth.
That was
about
literally
that
my next question.
Well, I thought when it happened in the moment, if I was the one in charge, suspension through the end of the year, probation, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know, but just like probation. But I was thinking like either the suspension or a big fine. Like, have your choice, Nikko, 1 year suspension or $20,000 fine. And so it's a lot to process because it just happened, but yeah.
All right.
I mean, NFL players are like raping and killing people and they get like 6 games suspension. So it's like, I don't know. He didn't touch anyone. He didn't curse. Like, I don't know. it's his entire livelihood, and it's sad, but 9 months is short. I mean, it's short and long. So I don't know.
Two of your Discraft teammates, Paul and Brodie Smith, have had a bit of a falling out, and then were publicly sort of feuding online yesterday on Twitter.
Okay.
Thoughts on like Paul and Brodie and like what's going on there with vis-a-vis Discraft?
I would love to hear what was said, but I mean, Paul. I mean, just knowing Paul, like.
I can read you the tweets.
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
Hang on, let me make sure that I get it right. So Brodie, Paul,
all right,
Paul
everyone,
put some thoughts
Paige
on
Pierce's
Instagram
live reactions
about the Nikko suspension. A lot of people disagree with him,
okay,
including Brodie. Basically, Paul's like, I'm not going to try to summarize that whole situation. We're going to talk about it on the Upshot tomorrow.
No, I know it because he told me we had a 30-minute conversation yesterday.
Right.
Oh, right. Yeah. He came right up to me and was like, boom. Anyway.
So Brodie said, just saw the screenshot. Got to say that's a pretty bad take, Paul. And then there were some replies. And then Paul comes in at the end of this reply chain and says, Brodie has me blocked, but I hope he stays. I like the fact that he has to throw discs with my name on it.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. And I bet you he's just laughing at himself, like he just knows how funny that is. No, I mean, what is that it?
That's basically it. I mean, I think there may be some other stuff, but that's basically it.
That probably is it, because what can Brodie say back to that? Like it's the truth, right? Like Paul, I think he just likes to rile people up because he knows like he's the man, and like, what can you say back to that? Like Brodie is totally throwing all of Paul's discs, and like, yeah, Brodie, yeah, I don't know.
All right,
Brodie comes into the sport with like this huge following, and he just expects to get all of this stuff. And you know, when Discraft's like, no, like this is our criteria, and this is how we do things. You know, two amazing things come of that. Brodie works his butt off to get to where he is now, like top 10s, top 5s. Like it's motivating him. Brodie's like, okay, I understand. Like I'm not an exception. Cool. I'm going to work hard. And it showed the entire like world of disc golf. Like, wow, if you work hard for a year, like you guys can be good. Like Brodie put in so much time. So I think that good came of it. And then also like you got this guy coming up and saying, hey, I deserve what Paul's getting. And so it's making Paul work harder as well. And like Paul works well off of like proving people wrong, proving himself, and like, and then him not forgetting to I mean, like last year or the year before, he was like kind of like doing the same thing online with Ken Climo. So like, who else can talk crap to the champ like Paul? Like he and that's why he is the best, is because he believes it, and like so does everybody else, you know? Like I don't know, I think yes, it's like some tension back and forth of like, I deserve this, I deserve that, you know, he doesn't deserve this, whatever. Like, but honestly, I think Discraft is sitting there like, hell yeah, we're riling up two bulldogs that are gonna go fight to be our main guy, and that's what I would want in a spot. Like if I was the sponsor, like I would want my whole team fighting for that top spot and pushing each other to be better.
All right, and then the final thing, this is sort of related to Nikko, but also generally, time violations have been a thing that, you know, we're seeing very slow play at times. It was an issue in MPO at Mid-America Open, the final round. Do you think that there should be something more done to deal with timing and other infractions as opposed to just having it called by the players as it's been for so long?
Yeah, I think that, you know, back to what I said about 2023, what I want to see, I think that's the secondary one. And that's probably actually priority number one is paid officials. I want to see like at every single event, 18 paid officials, one on each hole. You don't have to follow the card and like you're that cards thing. Like I want one person stationed on each hole, And so that everybody plays that hole identical with the same rules. They actually had that at European Open on hole 3 this year, and I thought it went super smooth. But yeah, pay them. That way you have more people applying for the jobs, not just volunteers. They have to pass this like exam just like we do as players, and even more so, like even higher of a test. And stop being self-officiated, because like I touched on a couple questions back, like when we open our door, we see a basket, but we also see 10 of our friends, and chances are we're also competing against them in a couple days. And so that line kind of gets blurred of like, oh, do I want to call him on that? And then get into like lose a friend, maybe, like have this whole thing. So let's get away from that. You don't have NFL players like flag, face mask, like it's just not a thing. Like, so disc golf's just a little behind on that, and hopefully 2023 is the change of that.
All right, Paige. Well, it's always great to talk with you, and we thank you for coming on and giving us an hour of your time. Good luck with the Q&A tonight, and congratulations on a beautifully shot and produced movie.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's on sale until September 4th, so that's when the sales will stop. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, make sure you grab it. It's there's a link on my bio, but
I'll put a
link
in the description on the podcast too.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Paige.